Jesus pointed out several differences between the Pharisee hosting his banquet and the sinner who showed up to anoint Jesus' feet. Number one, he said that the Pharisee wouldn't even anoint his head, but the woman would anoint his feet. Number two, he said the Pharisee wouldn't wipe his feet with a towel, but the woman would wipe his feet with her hair. And number three, he said that the Pharisee wouldn't give him a single kiss, but the woman hadn't ceased to kiss him from the time he entered into the house. In other words, everything that the Pharisee wasn't willing to do, the woman was willing to do that and more, showing that she that's forgiven much, the person who's forgiven much, loves much. And that's why God is after people that the world would call sinners. I'm Pastor Branson Villardo. I pray this video will be a blessing to you. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video and share it to help us get the word out, and subscribe to our channel for more great content just like this. One of my favorite stories in the Bible is found in Luke chapter 7. And in that story, Jesus is in the midst of a banquet. And at that banquet, there's a woman who shows up and starts to anoint his feet with oil and to wash his feet with the hairs of her head and to kiss his feet. And the Pharisee that's at the banquet says this man, this is in Luke chapter 7 and verse 39. It says, "Now when the Pharisee which had bidden him saw it, he spake within himself, saying, This man, if he were a prophet, would have known who and what manner of woman this is that touches him, for she is a sinner. And Jesus answering said unto him, Simon, I have somewhat to say unto thee. And he said, Master, say on. And he says, There was a certain creditor which had two debtors, the one owed 500 pence and the other 50. And when they had nothing to pay, he frankly forgave them both. Tell me therefore which of them will love him most. And Simon answered and said, I suppose that he to whom he forgave most. And Jesus answered and said, You have rightly judged. Now here's what's interesting, is Jesus goes on to present three major differences between the Pharisee and the woman who was at the banquet. But before he does that, he says, Simon, seest thou this woman? Now, many scholars will tell you that the reason he said, Seest thou this woman, was because the Pharisees wouldn't even look at somebody they considered a sinner. So he said, I want you to look at her. And then he points out three key differences between the woman at the banquet and the Pharisee. Number one, he said, I entered into your house and you gave me no water for my feet, but she's washed my feet with tears and wiped them with the hairs of her head. In other words, you wouldn't give me water to wash my feet. She didn't even have water. You had water. She didn't have it. But she took what she didn't have and she started to weep. And she used her tears to wash me. Number two, you gave me no kiss, but this woman, since the time I came in, has not ceased to kiss my feet. You wouldn't do once what she's been willing to do the entire time. And number three, my head with oil you wouldn't anoint, but this woman has anointed my feet with oil. In other words, you wouldn't anoint even my head, but she was willing to anoint my feet. And Jesus says that's the difference between this woman, who you call a sinner, and who the Bible says was a sinner, and the Pharisees. That's the heart that God is after in his people. People that say, even if I don't have water to wash your feet, I'll cry tears enough to wash your feet. Even if some people aren't willing to give the Lord one kiss, I won't cease to worship him. I won't cease to kiss him. And number three, even if I don't have access to his head, because the way they would sit around the table, the woman on the outside couldn't get access to Jesus' head to anoint his head, so she just went to anoint his feet. And she said, even if all I have access to is the feet, I'll anoint the feet. Those are the types of people that God is looking for. People that say, even when the conditions aren't perfect, there's some people that they need a head encounter with Jesus in order to worship him. They have to get God's very best. If the lighting isn't right, if the sound's not right, if all the external factors aren't right, then they can't worship. But then there's other people who they just can't help to worship. The moment that they get into the place, even if all they get is the feet of Jesus that have been outside walking, they don't care. They're willing to worship him because they just love to be in his presence. Be that type of person. I encourage you today. Be that type of person that whatever you have from God, you're extremely grateful for it. And you express your adoration and your worship towards him at every chance you get. I'm Pastor Branson Velardo. I pray this video has been a blessing to you. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video and share it to help us get the word out, and subscribe to our channel for more great content just like this. God bless you. We love you.